Hello, I'm Florence Dowrick, a MajorTim.space Honorary Young Ambassador. Today, I'm interviewing Roma Agrawal. Roma, could you please introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you for having me. So my name is Roma and I'm an engineer, author and broadcaster.
So, I read that you grew up in Mumbai. How long did you live there and what was it like?
So I lived in Mumbai from the age of 6 till 16. I was actually in the USA before then. So I've had a very international upbringing. And I really loved that fact because I lived in a very snowy, quiet place in America. I lived in a very big, busy place which was Mumbai. And now I live in London. So having that international experience, I think is really great.
Yeah, like you said, you also lived in New York and then moved to London. Did you enjoy living in different countries and experiencing such major cities?
Yes, I've always loved living in cities. I think it's really nice to have so many different people and cultures and languages and foods and all these sorts of things as part of my life. And I think that's really impacted the way I write because I always love making sure that there's lots of very international stories in my books.
Your undergraduate degree was in physics. What drew you to physics?
Great question. I always loved science, and because I grew up in India, the science education is really ace, and people, really want to become engineers and scientists and accountants, and all the kind of STEM subjects. So I always loved science, and I did further maths, science, physics, and design and technology for my A levels. And then decided to do physics as a degree because I was just always fascinated with how the world around us works.
Although you were studying physics, you ended up with a summer job working with engineers. How did that come about?
So I was looking for some jobs over the summer to get some work experience and also to earn a bit of money. And I managed to find this job in the physics department at the university that I was studying at, which was Oxford. And it was really interesting for me because I was able to work with engineers during that summer placement. And then that's really what led me to becoming interested in engineering and deciding to do a master's in engineering.
What did the job involve?
So that particular summer job involved, it was quite boring. So what I was in charge of doing was to go and draw up all the safety features around the physics department at Oxford. So, the fire alarms and the fire extinguishers and so on. But because I was surrounded by other engineers that were designing equipment for physicists to do their experiments, I could see the engineering happening around me, even if my task was quite dull.
On reflection, do you view that summer job as a positive experience? And did you feel encouraged and welcomed as a woman in a stereotypically male environment?
So yes, I'm very glad I did that work placement because that's the one that led me towards my whole career in engineering. And I would say that I think I was the only woman in that office actually, but it was quite a small office of about 5 or 6 people. And that particular office was so welcoming, and they really supported me and helped me think through my career options and so on. I think during my physics degree and engineering degree, I was one of 10% of women students during those courses. And at work, I think that increased to about 20% women in the structural engineering field that I went into later. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a mix of things. And overall, yes, of course, there have been some difficult experiences, but I'm really glad that I became an engineer and have had to do lots of really fascinating work.
You then decided to do a master's degree in structural engineering. How did that compare to your undergraduate degree?
So there were lots of bits that were common and that complemented each other, and then there was a lot of stuff that I had to sort of learn from new. So I would say that a lot of the maths that I had studied during my physics degree were really applicable to the structural engineering masters. But when it came to, designing the nuts and bolts and understanding steel and concrete, that stuff was new. So it was a difficult master's to do, but I'm glad I did that because it allowed me to have my career in engineering.
You were one of the engineers, working on the shards. Can you tell me about your role?
Yes. So so first of all, if you have never heard of a structural engineer, we use maths and physics to make buildings and bridges stand up. So that's our job. And the idea with the Shard was that I was part of a team, and there were, a team of maybe 7 or 8 structural engineers, and I worked on that for 6 years. So quite a big chunk of my career was spent on that. And I got to work on the design of the foundations of many of the office floors in the middle of the building, and then also the spire, which is the very top bit of the building where the viewing galleries are. So that was really fun.
Were there any particular challenging aspects of that project? And if so, what were they?
Yes, so I would say digging the foundations was one of the big challenges, because the Shard has 3 levels of foundation. So we're going down about 20 meters. And that means, and that's in the middle of central London, right? So we've got tube lines around us, a train station, a bus station, a hospital. There's tons and tons of people and companies and other structures and things around that building. And when you dig a giant hole, that can make the ground around the hole move a little bit. And so I would say that that was one of the biggest challenges that we had to deal with.
Do you have a particular memorable part of the experience?
I think my most memorable part was when the steel at the very top of the building was going in, and I had to climb a ladder from level 69 to level 72. So it was a 3-story tall ladder. I'm not very good with heights, and so I remember being pretty terrified, but the view was so worth it when I got up there.
I can imagine it. It must have been amazing. So you've worked for a number of big companies and in big projects, i.e. the Shards. Of all the projects you have worked on, do you have a favourite project, and why?
So I won't say the Shard, because that's a familiar one to a lot of people. Instead, I'll pick the Northumbria University footbridge. So that's a footbridge in Newcastle. And that was the very first project that I got to work on. And it's a really pretty bridge with lots of cables. And so there was lots of very interesting maths and engineering to do on that one.
What are some good practices in terms of diversity and inclusion that you have seen in any of the companies? Do they try to encourage applications and career progression in underrepresented groups?
That's such a wonderful question, and it has a very big and complicated answer, I guess. So I think one of the biggest things is when you're looking at applications for people you want to bring into your company, sometimes not having the typical CV can be really interesting. So for example, for me, like not only being a woman of color, I also had a degree in physics, not in engineering, which is what most people would normally have. And so, you just need people to take a little bit of a leap of faith to think, oh, maybe this person who's a bit different would bring a new perspective into the workplace. So I think companies that do that are great. And then the other one is making sure, particularly that women stay on in their careers in their 30s and early 40s, because that's around the time we will often might have children or might have aging parents to look after. And we have some, these responsibilities of care come up. And so it's making sure that, we can keep people in. And I think flexible working has been one of the biggest promoters of that, making sure women can stay, giving them that flexibility. The thing that I would really want to see a big change in is encouraging men to take time off when they have children. So having better shared parental leave policies or, parental leave policies. Yeah, that should be a big priority for companies.
What is your current career focus? Are you still working on structural engineering projects?
I am not, and I miss it, but my main career focus now is writing books and doing some speaking and speaking to young people like yourselves. And I have now written and published 4 books. So 2 of them are for adults and 2 of them are for children. And most recently, the one that I think you've got a copy of as well is
Yes,
7 Small Inventions That Changed the World. Oh, there you go. And the beautiful illustrations you can see on that were done by Jisoo Choi, and who's an artist in South Korea. So yeah, that's my 4th book that came out just a couple of months ago.
You do a lot of work promoting engineering and making it more accessible. Why is this so important to you?
I think engineering is such a fun career to have. It's so creative. You get to work with people, you might get to travel, you get paid well, and there's lots of different types of engineering that you can do. So you can work from anything like on a tiny scale, like little nano robots, to huge robots, or from designing products to designing trains or space satellite. There's just so much that you can do as an engineer. And unfortunately, in the West, particularly in countries like the UK and the US, for some reason, people are not that aware of these careers and don't fully understand what they are and how they work. So I'm really interested in making sure that young people know that this is a great option for them, particularly people who are not very well represented in engineering at the minute. So women and people of color and other marginalized communities.
You have written several books. I've read 2. How Was That Built? And 7 Small Inventions That Changed the World. What inspired you to start writing books?
So I really enjoyed going out and speaking to young people about my work, and also people who were, adults but weren't engineers. And so actually talking about engineering to people who didn't know much about engineering, I found really fun and exciting. And I used to see their eyes light up when they learned something new that they didn't know about. And I realized that there's only so many places I can go, or that many people I can speak to. And so I thought books would be an amazing way to get the word out there that people could keep with them. And it gave me the chance to do loads of fun research about, the people and the history and all these other parts of engineering that sometimes get lost. And that's why I decided to write books and to keep writing books.
I love the illustrations in your children's book. How did that collaboration come about? And did you contact the illustrator, or was this arranged by the publisher?
Yeah, so it's all arranged by the publisher. So the publishers are in contact with the illustrator. I haven't actually ever spoken to her directly, which seems so weird. But we're sending each other, so I get her sketches, I get the ideas that she's got, I send my comments back to the publisher, and the publisher has a designer in their, in-house that looks at every single spread, every page, and looks at how to arrange the text and the illustrations and so on. So there's a really beautiful design process that happens to create a children's book like that.
My favorite invention in your new book is the nail, because I had no idea there were so many different types. Do you have a favorite invention in it, and why?
I love that. I think in some ways, so I change my answer every time, to be honest, because I keep flipping between them. I love all of them. Maybe let me say string this time, because string, I guess we don't often think of as an engineering invention. And I think I was the most surprised when I decided to include that in my book. And my favorite anecdote about string is that it wasn't humans that invented string. In fact, it was the Neanderthals. And we have found evidence from 40 to 50,000 years ago of Neanderthals creating string, very similar to the string that we still use today.
Did you have a favorite fact that you most enjoyed researching for your children's book?
Oh, my favorite fact, I think the one that people love the most is from the nail section. And that's the one that, we think of nails as being so cheap and readily and easily available today. But in fact, if you go back a few hundred years in the US, when we didn't have the machines and everyone had to make the nails by hand, they were really expensive and precious. And so people in the US used to burn their houses down and collect the nails up and then use those nails to build their next home. That's how precious and expensive nails used to once be. And I find that a kind of mind-blowing fact.
You have appeared on many TV shows, including Channel 4 reality program Lego Masters as a judge during season 1. What has been your favorite appearance so far, and do you prefer television work to giving talks and writing books?
I love doing Lego Masters. It was so much fun to meet all of these really, really passionate Lego builders, and I learned so much from them. I do really like doing television, but I also really love speaking and writing. And so as long as I've got a nice mix of those things, I'm happy.
You also seem to have an aptitude for taking complicated ideas and explaining them in a way that makes them easy to understand. Where do you think this ability comes from? Is it something you've always been able to do, or a skill you've learned over time?
Oh, it's definitely a skill that I've learned over time. It's not an easy skill. And it took me, so I had been working for 5, 6, or 7 years. I can't remember exactly how long, but a number of years before I ever got asked to present my work to young children. And then I went, oh my goodness, I can't just do the same presentation I do for adults. And I really had to think about the basics, bring it right back to the basics, and then think of comparisons or analogies that would explain these tricky principles. So it's actually quite hard to do, but it is the most rewarding thing. And I think over time, as I've practiced and done more and more books and more talks, I've gotten a lot better at it.
I noticed that you structured the children's books using bullet points. Was this to make it more appealing to the younger audiences?
Yes, so I think one of the biggest differences between the adult book and the children's book actually isn't the content, because the stories and the topics that I'm covering are the same. But for children, I wanted to really cut down the number of words, and I wanted to make sure that the illustrations are really doing the job of engaging the readers in the content. And so yes, it's much more about thinking about every single word, what's really necessary to write down, and what am I really trying to say, and how can I say that in the fewest words possible. So that's definitely, again, a new skill that I've had to learn when I started writing children's books.
In 2018, you received an MBB for your services to engineering. Do you know who nominated you, which member of the royal family presented the award to you, and how did that experience feel?
Yes, so technically, this has never been confirmed about who nominated me, but I believe it was the Royal Academy of Engineering, with whom I've done a lot of work. And so I'm very grateful to them for nominating me. And it was Prince William that presented it. And it was a really lovely, the weather was horrible. It was pouring down with rain, but my husband and my parents were able to come with me to the palace, and we had a really lovely experience there. And in fact, I was 10 weeks pregnant at the time, and very, very sick the whole time. And so I really remember that as well.
How do you feel about the future of structural engineering in terms of diversity, inclusivity, and decolonization?
I feel generally positive, but I would like to see the changes happening more quickly. And one of the big changes I'm seeing now, which is brilliant, is that climate change and sustainability are being talked about and taught in a much more open way than it was when I was coming through. So I think that's a really positive step forward.
Do you have any advice for people, especially women and people of colour, who are looking to pursue a career in engineering?
My advice would be that there are lots of stereotypes out there, and I would encourage you to do your own research and speak to people. You've got the whole internet available to you, which I didn't when I was growing up. And you can do your own research and make your own decisions about how you feel about things. So that would be one piece of advice I would give you. And the second one is that there are a range of companies and places to work out there. Some of them are really good, and some of them still have a long way to go. So you try your best to find the ones that do well. And if you end up in a company that's not really working out for you, then hopefully you can find a better and more supportive place somewhere else. So there's always options.
You have appeared in episodes of Abandoned Engineering. Could you tell us about this experience, and was there travel involved for filming? Have you visited any of the locations covered?
Sadly, there was no travel. So the way that particular documentary and some of the other ones that I've done as well, I've done Mysteries from Above is another one, and I did one called Great Palaces. So there's a few different types of documentaries I've done. Those ones don't involve much travel. I get to read and learn about these incredible things that the producers have found, and then we film in a studio. I have also had experience of filming on site. So I was part of a documentary, I think it was called the tallest towers or something like that. So that was about skyscrapers in London, and I got to go and sort of walk along the River Thames and look at some of the different tall buildings around London. So yeah, documentaries are made in quite a mix of ways.
What makes a successful engineer?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it's a mix of abilities. Okay, so you want to have some good technical abilities. So you want to be pretty solid with your foundation with maths and physics, but that's not the most important thing necessarily. Being able to talk and communicate your ideas with people who aren't engineers is really important. And I also think that having some kind of creativity as part of you is really lovely as well. So I can draw a little bit. I'm not some great artist, but I can draw enough to communicate ideas to people. And I think having either some drawing skills or some language skills or something like that will also add to you becoming a great engineer.
Can you tell me about the most challenging engineering project that you have ever been involved in?
I would say probably the Shard, because it was such a big project, and also we had a deadline to finish the outside of the structure by the start of the Olympics. And of course, the media and people were very, very interested in wanting to know what was going on with the construction of that building. And so, yeah, there was a lot of eyes on that project. So from that perspective, I think that was quite challenging, and also just because it was so huge.
Would you say that teamwork is important for engineering?
Teamwork is incredibly important. You can't engineer things without talking to other people, because a lot of people are involved in creating something. So with structural engineering, for example, we work with architects, we work with mechanical, electrical engineers, with public health engineers, and we also work with quantity surveyors. So they're the ones that figure out how much things are going to cost and where to buy things from to actually build the thing. We work with project managers, with the client. There's so many people involved. And the better that you can work with other people and communicate ideas and learn how to, resolve any conflicts, for example, or negotiate things, I think that's a really important part of engineering as well.
How do you approach setting professional goals with engineering or other aspects of your career?
So I would say that when I was an engineer, my career was more structured, and that's not a pun, well, sort of a pun. It was about understanding what my next promotions are, becoming chartered, and so on. Whereas now that I'm freelance and focusing on writing and speaking, it's much more fluid. And in some ways, I miss the previous structure, but also I enjoy the flexibility. So I think with different phases of your life and career, you'll have different ways in which you might want to plan your career out. So at the moment, I am trying to set up my next adult book, my next children's book, so that I know roughly what I'm doing for the next 3-4 years. And the speaking and the television, all of that stuff actually comes in quite last minute. So that has to be require flexibility.
How are shapes used in engineering, and what is the most important shape in engineering?
So the most important shape in engineering is a triangle, and I don't know whether you can see the tattoo of the triangle on my finger here, because the number 3 and the triangle are really important for me. And the reason triangles are such a good shape in engineering is because they're quite difficult to deform. So if you made a square, it's quite easy to sort of collapse the square into a diamond. But if it's a triangle, it's a much more stable shape. And so that's really important in engineering, in structures.
Do you have any advice about getting into writing or publishing?
If you've got ideas, then certainly persist. It is not a very easy industry to get into. And the best way, I think, is to learn about how it works and try and find people who can support you and explain how it works, really. And that's how it worked out for me, because I was talking so much. I would meet other authors and I would sit and ask them questions about writing and publishing. And then they would help me and so on. And so I actually run or co-founded a mentorship scheme for people from underrepresented backgrounds who want to become science writers. And it's called Science Write. And we are supported by the Royal Society. So I would definitely say if you're thinking of becoming a science writer and you have an idea in mind that you want to develop, then that's one possible thing that you can keep an eye on.
And what advice would you give to young people who are interested in STEM?
I just think it's so exciting. So just play, have fun, do lots of experiments, read books. If there's museums or other activity centers around you that do STEM stuff, go and enjoy that. But yeah, just have fun with it.
Thank you, Roma. This interview was amazing. I'm so honored to be talking with you.
Thank you, Florence. You've been such a great interviewer and you've asked me lots of really, really brilliant questions. So thank you for your time.
I really enjoyed researching for the book and researching for the interview.
Oh, that's really kind of you to say. And yeah, I'm so pleased that you were able to read a couple of the books and that you enjoyed them. So thank you.
That book with me here.